Hello there, this is Denzin, and today I'm looking at this, Chainsaw Warrior, a board game from the classic era of Games Workshop. Well, when I say classic era, I basically mean the 1980s, and this is a bit of a standalone weirdness, as you had with many of their little board games back in the day, before the days of Warhammer 40,000 taking over. In fact, this dates back to 1987, the same year as Rogue Trader, and what we have here is a solo board game. Chainsaw Warrior, 60 Minutes to Save New York, with a fantastic bit of artwork. This is Brett Owens. If you are a 2000 AD fan, you might recognise him. Bad Company, super. Warlord Games, if you're going to do another 2000 AD title, that will do nicely. So, a nice bit of artwork from a comic book artist there on the cover. Let's just flip it over. This gives us a bit of blurb. I mean, it is the year 2032. Good lord, that's catching up, isn't it? A warp has opened up in an old municipal building in the heart of old Manhattan, and bizarre creatures are flooding through into our dimension. Goading them on is darkness, a malevolent entity who intends dragging the city of New York back through the warp, destroying it utterly. Ooh. Of course, the only person who can stop it is you on your own. The army's already gone in and they've all died horribly. So you're going to work your way through a building, find this evil entity known as Darkness, and kill it. And why not? We have our complexity level here. It's 14 to adult, only one player, and it takes half to 1 hour. Well, that makes sense. You've got 60 minutes to save your New York. If the game took longer than an hour, there'd be something wrong, wouldn't there? Stephen Hand, who also did The Fury of Dracula, something I've also looked at. He's responsible for this. And what you get in the box, nice bit of contents there. But we'll have a look. We'll open it up. One thing I keep forgetting to do, actually, when I open these boxes up, is looking on the side, because you always had the other games that were out at the time. Talisman, bit of a classic, still going strong, along with Blood Bowl, first edition there. No minis in that one. Cardboard stand-ups. Warlock of Firetop Mountain from the Fighting Fantasy game book. Also done an unboxing of this. The classic Warhammer Fantasy roleplay. On the other side we have the... Oh, is that the first edition of Fantasy Battles? Or is it... I think it's the second edition, isn't it? Yeah, second edition. Kings and Things. I used to have that. Never played it because I was too young at the time. And I just remember it was hundreds of tokens. Ooh. Judge Dredd role-playing game. I have that somewhere. And then we have Warrior Knights. Never seen this one. I've seen this, but I've never opened the box, never had a look at it, never played it. But today we have Chainsaw Warrior. Starts off with a comic. I mean, you've got a comic artist to do the work, why not? And this gives you a little rundown on what's going on. Quite amusing. I mean, obviously, 2032, that long distant year in the future. We've got a few hovering cars, of course. Very 2000 AD. I do like the fact that there's a little tooling up section here, like it's Commando. You know, he's getting his ammo, getting his gun ready. Click, 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 click. And then, of course, he's ready. Look at him. With his chainsaw. I mean, what else do you need if you're going to take down demons? Obviously, it's a chainsaw. The funniest thing I found about this was the back, because on the back there's a little comic advertising your very own Chainsaw Warrior t-shirt. Yes, the t-shirt that made a mad out of Steve. Yes, the I Am a Chainsaw Warrior t-shirt, where this little wimp is getting sand kicked in his face on the beach, until of course he gets his Chainsaw Warrior t-shirt, and then all of a sudden he's the hero on the beach. Absolutely. I mean, let's face it, if you see a man wearing a t-shirt which says, I am a Chainsaw Warrior, you don't mess with him, do you? It makes sense. There's nothing wrong with that advertising. Absolutely true. Also advertised are some minis, which is quite interesting. There's a few minis there. You get free for £1.95. The t-shirt was £5.95, and you can get your I'm a Chainsaw Warrior badge for 40 pence. Bargain. The aesthetic of the Chainsaw Warrior, though, did kind of go on. I'm pretty sure this fella does turn up in Rogue Trader in one of the photo shoots. You slip him in there with the Imperial Army. And I think also in Dark Future, the Warrior, the car game, the Warrior car game, there was a little Chainsaw Warrior mini that the Perrys did, I think, that looks very similar as one of the characters for that game as well. So really interesting, they did a little comic to set the scene for that one before moving into the box. Now, this rule system, being a solo game, you're basically moving along a board, a tracked board, and every time you do an action or flip a card, you sort of move the board on. So you have this 60 minutes to save New York. Now, it is very similar to something like, in the modern era, Escape the Dark Castle, where you have a deck of cards, and that deck of cards tells you what you're walking through, so corridors and rooms, and when you go inside each location, you can find out if there's anything in there. So this one's empty, thank goodness. Work your way through. I'm sure if I flip through, oh no, what's this? An agent, a chaos agent, looking a bit like Doctor Doom there. There he is. Take him down. They've all got their own little special rules and how good they are in combat. So some creatures are tougher than others. Zombies are everywhere. Think about zombies as well. If they actually wound you, you can get infected and you might become a zombie yourself. That room's clear. Very good. Get in the elevator. So you sort of map out the building as you go along. You're going from rooms to corridors, elevators, balconies, and so on, up the staircase. Trap. Oh dear. And the goal is to find the darkness. So when you shuffle your deck at the beginning, darkness is in the second part of the deck somewhere, and you've got to come across him and take him down. But there's only really one weapon that kind of takes him down, so you've got to make sure you've got that when you tool up and get your equipment ready. There is an equipment deck also. Here we have some wandering monsters, because if you hang around too long, they turn up. Obviously, zombies wander about, that's what they do. And then we have our list of weapons here, which you can, if I remember correctly, you have points at the beginning to spend on items. So we have machine guns, and they've all got little names as well, which makes it interesting. Like the company name, who designed various weapons. Ooh, what's this one? A teleport implant. If I remember correctly, that allows you to escape the board, so you can get out of the board and go back in again. What else we got here? Lockpick set, so some rooms might be locked and you can get into them. So yeah, various weapons, rope launcher, there you go. Also in here there must be, there it is, a chainsaw. I mean, it'd be silly not to have one, wouldn't it really? So all manner of instruments of death, which you need to fight your way through a building. The building itself is represented by the cards, but there is still a board. Now the board, like a typical GW board at the time, like the Warlock of Fight Up Mountain or Fury of Dracula, very simple slot together jigsaw, and this allows you to basically place all of your cards not on a table but on this board, and then you can see what's going on. So you have your sort of turn counter, so you've got 60 minutes, and every time you get in a fight you lose a couple of minutes and so on. It can very quickly evaporate your time if you get a little bit lost with certain things. You've got your health and your various statistics, such as hand-to-hand combat. A lot of that you roll up, very similar to a Fighting Fantasy game book. You basically roll 2 dice and add your scores, and then beat the creature's score by doing the same thing. Although there's a few lovely little extras that they can do. So you get a chance to do lucky shots at creatures. You can roll a dice, and you can actually shoot yourself by accident by rolling a 1. So obviously they've got their top man to go into this building and deal with the darkness. And it sort of makes the combat a little bit more exciting than, say, a Fighting Fantasy game book where you just roll 2 dice and add your skill. There's these little quirks that can happen to make it a little bit more interesting. You've got your sequence of play here, so you don't have to go flicking through the book too much. How the combat works. And yes, the extra wound chart, as I say, where you can roll to see if monsters can do more damage to you when they get you. And escaping from combat, which is always nice. So yes, you put your deck here and you work your way through them, and then you have your weapons as well, all neatly displayed on your little dashboard here. Now, what I find interesting about this game is I've played it a couple of times in the days, and I've always found it quite hard. I don't know why. I don't know why I've always failed miserably. But I do. I always get a rough deal with the cards and always end up getting chomped by various creatures of darkness, which isn't pleasant, obviously. Um, but it did make me think about this game. I mean, Stephen Hand has a really nice little bit of information in the rulebook about why he came up with this game in the first place. Basically, as a bit of a fever dream in his student days. And it's quite nice to get that bit of nod as to what the history is behind the development of the game. But it did make me think of other IPs. I mean, you're going into a building in New York and you've got to save it from an evil darkness. You could reskin this game for kids and do it as Ghostbusters. Quite easy. You just redo the cards, as get rid of the chainsaw, put in something else, like a trap, whatever. And Ghostbust your way through the zombies and ghouls, change some of the cards to be ghosts instead. Use the same rule system. Or if you want to go full 80s, you could go for Escape from New York. I mean, that has a time limit as well, didn't it? You could even go a bit Jack Bauer with this, couldn't you, and go 24. So anything with a time limit, I think works quite well. I mean, yeah, Escape from New York with a deck, instead of finding darkness and killing it, you got to find the president. And then you got to get out of New York with the remaining cards without the time limit going. That's what I thought anyway. I thought maybe that's a good idea. So you could sort of reskin this and come up with your own game system based on this. If you want to play a game with, say, kids with Ghostbusters, or if you're just a big fan of Snake Plissken. But Chainsaw Warrior, I think, is a lovely little addition to Games Workshop's collection. As I say, an oddity, really, on its own, a little thing, a throwaway game. If you want to play a solo game, I got this during lockdown off the internet. I mean, why not? And if you love Escape the Dark Castle and any solo game like that, I reckon Chainsaw Warrior still has a lot of bite in it and is still very, very challenging and fun. So yeah, there we go, Chainsaw Warrior. Get in that building, chop off a few heads. So until next time, thank you very much.